Hey guys, Eddie Dilleen here. Today I want to do another quick video. This video is answering another question that was recently asked to me by just one of the people that's emailed through. And basically I'll jump right into it. The question that was asked was, Eddie, is there any particular suburbs that you would not invest in throughout Australia? And we're at that particular person, that asked the question, they were referring to Brisbane, but I'm going to, I guess, elaborate a little bit more and talk about entire Australia, about my thoughts and my particular reply to that kind of question in relation to suburbs throughout all Australia, right? What suburbs would I not invest in? And I'll jump right into it. It's a very open-ended question, and there's a lot of variables to this question depending on the person's own circumstances, where they're at the moment, what their ultimate goals are with building their property portfolio. For me, I've got over 20 properties. I'm 28 years old. I've invested in capital cities mainly, such as Sydney, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Adelaide, all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to soon buy in Victoria and Perth and all that kind of stuff and diversify my portfolio even further with capital cities. That being said, I haven't really bought in any regional places. I know a lot of people, they'll buy in like Tamworth, Wagga Wagga, lots of different places like that, and also in like regional Perth, regional Victoria, regional Adelaide, and all that kind of stuff. But for me personally, I've grown my portfolio, the basics of it, the foundation of my portfolio in metro areas first. And I guess it depends on, if I was starting again, I would definitely go for metro areas first, bottom line. I've covered this in some other videos and I don't want to get too far off the track here, but I guess jumping back to what suburbs would I not invest in? Now, bear in mind, the short answer to that is there is actually no suburb that I would not invest in, right? And that's probably going to shock a lot of people, because a lot of people out there might say, Eddie, well, what about areas that just aren't good? What about areas that have lower social economic standards? What about, if the area has lots of housing commission? What about if the area is out in the middle of whoop whoop? What about if the area is, flood prone? What about if the area, the list goes on forever. So I guess it really depends for me, right? Like every single property that I want to buy, it must tick three main key factors. So it must be below market value. I must be able to make money on the way in. I must be able to physically see that it is below what other ones have sold for recently. And if you can physically see if it is below what other ones have sold for recently, well, there's a good chance that you're going to be able to make money on the way in, create almost instant equity, be able to go back, revalue it higher, take your equity out and buy more property. So I want to buy it below market value. I want to have a good cash flow and support itself. And I also want it to be able to grow in value over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It depends on what stage you're getting started. If you're 50 years old and watching that video, you might have a different position than myself or someone else that is, 28, 30 years old. You might not have enough time to grow your portfolio. You might have different goals. Everyone's got a different position, I guess. But for me personally, let's talk about, let's say there's an area out there, maybe the person watching this video, maybe you're in Sydney, maybe you're in Melbourne, maybe you're in Queensland, Adelaide, wherever you are, right? Think about an area that is maybe half an hour or an hour away from the city that you personally wouldn't like to live, and most people will be like, oh, why are you investing there? It's a shady area, it's a bad area, whatever it is, right? Now, bear in mind, I've invested in some really good blue chip quality locations. Like I've got properties that are worth 1.3 million plus in my portfolio that are really good quality areas, very nice. I've got other ones right on the beach, very, very good blue chip quality properties. I've also got some properties that a little bit further out, I might not personally, they're not my dream house, I wouldn't love to live in them, but they're an investment property. So their numbers stack up, and I've got enough properties in my portfolio that some are really blue chip quality properties that are, very fancy smancy and all that other kind of stuff. And then that have huge, massive growth. And then these ones, they might have a massive yield, still growth, but I bought them below market value. So it ticks all the boxes regardless. But I guess think about any area that you know of that you think that you wouldn't personally like to live there, or whatever it is. Maybe it's lower social economic area or whatever, which bear in mind, guys, I personally grew up in Mount Druitt in Western Sydney. So in terms of an area that people would be like, oh, don't invest in there, right? You know, it's not the nicest place. There's housing commission everywhere. Like, I grew up in Wilmot in Mount Druitt. So like, those areas I've seen over the past 15, 20 years, that areas like the prices of houses go from like 150,000 to 300 to 400. So like, people that say that they don't grow as well, they're full of shit, because technically, like, they definitely grow with inflation no matter what kind of area you buy in. But I guess if I were to say to you, the area that you do not want to buy in, like, think about an area now that you do not want to buy in. If I were to say, well, there's an opportunity to buy a property there for $1, right? So and I can physically show you that it's worth 300,000, right? But you're going to be able to buy it for $1. Or it's worth 300K and you're going to be able to buy it for $50,000. Would you buy it? That is the question. Because to me, it's all about the numbers. It obviously helps about the location, about, you know, transport, you know, population growth, a million different things, right? But if you were given an opportunity, and even if it wasn't in the area that you want to live in, and we're talking about investment purposes here anyway, so that doesn't matter. But if you were to be able to pick up a property that was such a good deal, that it was 100,000 below what it was worth, or 300 grand below what it was worth, and it was in the area that you really don't want to invest in, would you still buy it? Because to me, I would definitely still buy it. Like, let's say everyone knows that, a lot of people out there know that I don't like buying out in like mining towns and all that kind of stuff. I don't like buying out in regional towns. I've never bought out there. But let's say a property's worth 200,000, right? And I'm able to pick it up for $50,000. So I'm able to basically pick up 50K, and I know that I can get it valued at 200. So I stand to make 150,000 from this purchase, right? To me, I would still buy it, because even though I haven't done this before, I haven't bought in mining towns, regional towns, but if I came across something that was instantly 150,000, maybe it's 50,000, maybe it's 20,000, maybe it's $500,000 right away. But what I'm trying to say, guys, it does depend on the deal itself. It's like location matters, but if you're growing a portfolio and you want to get from A to B, you want to get from where you are right now to financial freedom, and you need quality properties, but you also need a quantity of properties, right? So you need a combination. No property investor gets to financial freedom and building a passive income with only 1 or 2 or 3 properties. So for me, why would you only aim for 1 or 2 or 3? You've got to aim for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plus properties majority of the time. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's no suburb that I would personally not invest in. Like, there's obviously some suburbs that I know that there's other ones out there that might outperform this, outperform that. But bear in mind, you've always got a growth ripple effect. So if we're talking about Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, capital cities like that, and we're comparing 2 suburbs. So we've got a suburb that's 10 kilometers out, and then we've got a suburb that's 15, maybe 20 kilometers out, right? They're going to have a growth ripple effect. So over the next 15 to 20 years, the areas that are 10Ks out are going to go up by maybe, let's say, 50%, which is hypothetically throwing numbers out there. But the areas that are 20Ks out, they're also going to go up by roughly the same mark. And this is exactly what has happened over the past 30 to 40 years. If you look at the data, if you look at the statistics from Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, areas like, take Sydney for example, properties that were in Bondi over the past 7 years, a lot of them went from $1 million to $2 million, right? Then you've also got properties, let's say out in Liverpool, in Western Sydney, or maybe even Penrith or wherever, right? They went from 400,000 to 800,000. So majority of novice investors, or people out there that don't really understand property investing too well, or haven't had in-depth experience themselves, they would think Bondi went up more. When realistically that went from 1 mil to 2 mil, and this one went from 400,000 to 800,000. It is it's the exact same percentage. 1 mil to 2 mil, 400 to 800. They both doubled in value. But for some reason, a lot of people think, oh, this one went up more, when in fact it didn't. So do your own research, right? Like, check properties that are in your local area or within 10 kilometer radius as an example, and then also check properties that were in 20, 30 kilometer radius over the past 30 years. What were they selling for 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago? What were they selling for 10 years ago? And what are they selling for now? So there's lots of suburbs that, there's thousands of suburbs out there, but I'm just trying to explain and answer that question as best I can to provide as much value from what I physically see is more important. All right. So if you can make money on the way in and you can pick up a bargain that is 50,000 under market value, 100,000 under market value, to me, it's more about using each property as a stepping stone to get from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And if you're going to have a portfolio that is 6, 7, or 8 properties, right? You're going to have some properties over here, some properties in really fancy, smancy areas, some properties that are a little bit further out, have a massive cash flow, but also growth and also buying below market value. And then eventually you might diversify in other states and many other things. So I hope this video helps. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, please comment below, tick like, click subscribe and all the rest of it. Any questions, please comment below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope this helps, and I'll see you next video. Bye.